Hi. As first speaker, I'm going to talk about temporal preprocessing of fMRI data. And Dr. Base Frederick cannot make the trip. My name is Yunji Tong. Dr. Frederick and me, both of us work at the McLean Imaging Center. Okay, so here's the scope of this talk. So at the beginning, I will introduce all the noise sources for fMRI signal, especially their temporal characteristics of these signals and how they are represented in both fMRI data. And then I will discuss, several methods to denoise this noise and also maybe to attenuate them if we cannot really remove them all. And I will concentrate on three topics. The first one is spectral filtering. The second one is spike removal. The last one is slice timing correction. And the later talks will dive into detailed, more sophisticated denoise method. Okay, so what are the goals for temporal preprocessing? Just like any other preprocessing tools, the goal is to remove noise while keep your signal and make your data ready for the further statistical analysis. Okay, so what are noise in fMRI signal? The noise of fMRI signal includes subject-generated noise, mainly due to physiological fluctuations and or motion. Or they can due to equipment-generated noise, mainly due to the scanner instability. And also they can due to they can caused by externally generated noise. These are, So these noises normally can be prevented by being careful, examine your room, make sure the door is locked before the scanning. So I'm not going to concentrate too much on the external generated noise. Okay, so what are the temporal characteristics of these noises? Let's start with the physiological noises. As we all know, we have a cardiac signal in your fMRI data. So cardiac signal is a pseudo-periodical signal, which is roughly about 0.8 to 1.2 hertz, in a healthy human subject. The other pseudo-periodical signal is a respiration signal. Roughly, it's about 0.2 to 0.3 hertz. Then there is a low-frequency oscillation, which roughly about 0.01 to 0.15 hertz. So this low-frequency oscillation actually can also be observed in other parts of your body. We can observe it using optical imaging at at your fingertip and your toe. So these are where actually our group will spend a lot of time to study this. The last one is the motion. The motion can be an aperiodic signal because it can be a spontaneous motion like coughing, and most importantly, motion can become a pseudo-periodic signal. This is because some motion are closely associated with your respiration, for example, and some motion even are associated with your task. So in those cases, those motion will share the same frequency as your respiration or even with your task. Those are the harder problem to deal with. For equipment-generated noise, mostly they're coming from scanner drifting or some very low frequency scanner noise. So they come to two categories. One is very, very low frequency, roughly below 0.01 hertz. And sometimes you have scanner-generated spikes. Those are high-frequency noises. But as our scanner gets better, these noises are become less and less a problem. As I said, the external generated noise, they can be easily prevented by carefully examining the room, make sure the door is closed and there is no loose wire in the room or something. So those are very easy to deal with. Okay, so we talk about the temporal characteristic of the noise. So what are the temporal characteristics of the signal? So we all know the signal we measure in fMRI is a Bose signal. It's a blood oxygenation level dependent signal. So Bose signal is not a direct measurement of neuronal signal. It's a blood signal. So basically, Bose signal will reflect blood flow, blood volume, blood oxygenation changes. So these changes can be influenced by your neuronal activation, through neuronal vascular coupling. Okay, so as I said, fMRI signal does not see neuron activation directly. So it sees the hemodynamic response to neuronal activation. So in the mathematical term, it means all your neuronal signals have to convolve with this hemodynamic function, and the resulting signal will be your bold fMRI signal. So in this case, this hemodynamic response function actually put a very clear limit on how early you can see the neuronal signal and how small the signal you can see. So in another word, that all your neuronal signal have to convolve with this hemodynamic response filter, which is the Fourier transform of this hemodynamic response function. So all your neuronal signal has to be filtered by this filter, and you can see all your neuronal signal, when they reflect in the bold fMRI, they're very confined into this small range, which roughly between 0 and 0.2 hertz. Okay, so basically what this means is the spectral property of fMRI signal are determined by your neuronal activation, this as we all know, but also, very importantly, it is determined by your HR filter. And for resting state data, because we have no control of the neuronal firing resting state, so in that case, we leave as wide filtering range as possible. So normally in the resting state data, we'll think the resting state data will occupy the whole spectrum range as allowed by the HR filter, which is 0 to 0.2 hertz. For task data, actually it varies. The spectrum of the task data varies based on how you design the task. And also, it is confined by the HR filter. Then to maximize your design efficiency, you want to try to concentrate your task spectrum in the peak location of this HR filter. If you look at the filter here, you want to concentrate your peak, you concentrate your task spectrum aligned with this, which is about 0.03 hertz. Okay, so how we do the filtering. So in order to improve your signal-to-noise ratio, the easiest way is to use a match filter theory, which is you try to use a filter which matches your data. So if you use the filter which match your data 100%, then you can easily remove the noise outside of your filter range. However, when your noise share the same frequency as your signal, then spectral filter is not going to help you. So you have to rely on modeling to model those noises and remove them later. Okay, so here I'm giving you several examples of how to filter the data. So this is the spectrum of a resting state data, which is taken using multi-band sequence. So the TR in this acquisition is 400 milliseconds. So because we have such small TR, we're able to fully sample all the physiological noise up to 1.25 hertz. So in that case, you can see we can clearly see the peak of the heartbeat is right here around 1 hertz. We can clearly see the peak here, which is the respiration, and the several harmonics of the respiration. So because we have such small TR, we're able to fully sample all the high-frequency physiological noises. And we can also see the neuronal signal together with low-frequency oscillation. They're hiding within this very low-frequency range. So in this specific case, if you want to filter out noise, you can use low-pass filter to cut off right here, which is about 0.15 hertz, to remove all these physiological noises. However, in a real case, we do not have the luxury of have such small TR. So here I'm giving you several examples of the regular TR we use. Normally people use TR equal to 3 seconds. And you can see, let's start from the high end. So if you TR equal to 0.5 seconds, you barely sample the heart rate. And if you TR equal to, say, 2 seconds, you barely sample the respiration. So if you TR equal to 3 seconds, normally you're not sampling any high-frequency noises. So by not fully sampling these physiological noises, it doesn't mean these noises are going away. So that means all these energies actually being alienated into your low-frequency band. So when you have TR equal to 3 seconds or beyond, there's no way you can use spectral filtering to remove all these high-frequency noises. So you have to rely on modeling. I think some later talks will talk about that. Okay, so what are your best choices? In terms of high-pass filtering, what you always want to, it's always suggested you to do high-pass filtering because that's the easiest way to remove low-frequency noise and very low-frequency noise and also scanner drifts. So people always use, we suggest people to use the cutoff frequency like 0.01 hertz to remove those very, very low-frequency noise. And for task data, normally we suggest people to try to set up the cutoff frequency as high as possible without interfere their task-free spectrum. So, for example, if you have 20 seconds on, 20 seconds off block design, task frequency is about 0.025 hertz. So you can move up your high-pass filter to as high as 0.02 hertz. So to just really boost your signal-noise ratio, target towards at this frequency. Okay, another important caveat here is when you do high-pass filter, basically it doesn't mean you remove the zero frequency component. So because all the Bose signal needs to be properly scaled to be displayed correctly. So which means you can think, the high-pass filter is you high-pass filter all the data, then you plus the mean value back for the order, for the purpose of the display and further, interpretation. So that's just for, some people might find this useful. Okay, so in terms of low-pass filtering, generally it's not recommended, because as we said, if your TR is bigger than 3 seconds or beyond, then spectral filtering is not going to help you to remove high-frequency physiological noise. So, but in the case that if you do have very small TR, so like TR we had, which is 400 milliseconds, you do fully sample those physiological noise, then we suggest people to use low-pass filter to remove those physiological noises. That's the easiest way to get rid of those noises. And if you do, if you want to use this low-pass filter, the range we suggest people to do is 0.15 hertz, because the reason is this: 0.15 hertz is almost at the upper boundary of the HR filter, and also it is below 0.2 hertz, which is the respiration rate. So that's roughly what we do when we have very small TR. Okay, so how do you do this? For a high-pass filter, actually, because it's suggested by all the, it's well known, it's suggested by everybody in the field, so all the existing packages have very easy implements of this high-pass filter. Normally, you can just click a button, then you can do that. For a low-pass filter, for some packages, you have to probably run the command line. There's no click button, thing you can do, but you have to run the command line. Personally, I use MATLAB because I want to have a little bit more control of what kind of filter I use. So, but there are many online tools you can use. There's, tutorial there you can, read. All of them give very good suggestions on how to use them. Okay, so to summarize, so the spectral filtering is very necessary. It's very good for boost your signal-noise ratio in your fMRI data. And the high-pass filter is always recommended to remove very low fluctuation and the drifting. And if you do have very small TR, you can use low-pass filter to remove high-frequency physiological noises. Okay, so the second topic is about the spike removal. So spikes are large discontinuities in your Bose signal. And the sources are, it can come from your electric sparks, which is nowadays very rare. And it can come from your rapid motion. And it can come from external interference, which is also very rare now. And we cannot use, spectral filter to remove spikes because, if you do Fourier transform of spikes, it's not, it's very complicated. It's not narrowed into a very specific, frequency range. So you cannot just use a bandpass filter to remove them. So the way to do that is you have to first detect where the spikes are. So normally, you have to examine your time course, or you have to examine your motion traces to really find out those, what we call outliers. And then what you do is you remove those outliers, and normally people interpolate those data. And lastly, the best way to do, not only remove them, you also want to do is you also want to generate a set of a single point regressor to absorb the residual variance. So in that case, to boost your statistic significance. Okay, so here's the example of a spike removal. You can clearly see on the top, there's a 3 clear spikes here. 1, 2, 3 here, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And so the program actually recognized these spikes and I think this one is using a median filter, which is not spectral filter. It's median filter to remove these spikes. And median filter basically is use you normal neighboring points to replace the spikes. So you can see these spikes are gone by using the median filter. Okay, so this spike is not always available in your package. So you normally cannot just check a button to despec your data. But there are many good online tools you can use to despec your data. Here I gave several. The first one is ART, I think Artifact Detection Toolbox from Sue Gabrielli at MIT. So here I give the link. You can download this. And the second one, if you use FSL, you can use command line FSL motion outliers. And also Blaze, it's not me, Blaze made this despec program. And you can just send him an email. And he's willing to share his program with you, I'm sure. Okay, so here I'm just giving you several examples of using ART in your data. So ART is a MATLAB-based GUI tool, basically for quantity control of your bow signal. So it does many things, but it does spike recognition and remove very well. So here is one example of using ART on the resting state data. And you can clearly see that, here you can set up on the right side, you can set up all these thresholds, and you can identify outliers. So in this case, you can identify intensity outliers, you can identify motion outliers, and this motion outliers, these are from the translational motion, these are from rotational motion. So this is the combined outliers. So they give, all these individual volumes, so you have to be careful, and they will remove those later. And this is another example. I think this is the resting state data taken on a 10-year-old child. And you can see, as I said before, these are the intensity outliers identified by the program. These are the motion outliers identified by the program. These are the combined. And after dealt with this motion outliers or these outliers, this is the result of this child. Actually, what they do is they did seed analyze on this child's data. And if you only regress out the motion, parameters, like we normally do, you miss the network. So if you regress out the motion parameters plus the outliers, then the network is showing up. So this is clearly a very powerful tool to contribute to your later analysis. Okay, so the summary for spike removal. Spike is very harmful data, and the good news is, nowadays spikes are not very common. However, when you study certain population like children or some certain people with, in our cases, with mental disorder, you have to be careful. In that case, spike removal might be very, very helpful to your data to achieve certain statistical level. Okay, so last topic is about the slice timing correction. So first, what is the problem? So as we all know, the fMRI data, the whole brain data was not acquired by one shot. So that means your data is acquired slice by slice within 1 TR. So if the first slice is taken at the time 0, the last slice is taken almost at the end of a TR. So if your TR is 3 seconds, the time difference between acquisition at the first slice and the last slice is almost about 3 seconds. So why that's a problem? So because in general linear model, we always assume all the slices are taken at the time 0. So in that case, if you use the general linear model, if you use general linear model to model the data, if you're not doing any correction, you only correctly model one slice out of your data. So for all the rest of the slice is wrong. And people did some simulation and found out that your beta value is decreased up to 63% in the event-related design and up to 12% in the block design, given TR equal to 4 seconds. So if you're not doing the correction, your beta value is decreased, is wrong dramatically. And for the resting state data, we all know that if you're not do the correction, you basically you cause huge ambiguity in your connecting analysis because all the slices is wrong except the first one. So in this case, we know the longer the TR, the worse the problem is if you're not doing the correction. Okay, here I'm giving you. Okay, so what's the way to correct this? The way to correct this is very simple. So we use temporal interpolation. So here I'm giving you an example of linear temporal interpolation. So basically what you do, okay, here, let's first start. So here I'm giving you two very commonly used acquisition order. One is called ascending order, the other called the interleave order. So you can see the purple circle indicates ideally how these 5 slices are supposed to be taken. These slices are supposed to be taken at time 0. The black circle actually indicate in the real case how they are taken. They are taken at very different time, right? So the linear interpolation is you use your neighboring time points, you use your neighboring data to resample at the correct time slide. So for example, to interpret this point, which is at the correct time, you use your neighboring slice to just interpret this data using linear interpolation. Okay, so how many slice acquisition order are there? There are many slice acquisition order. So there are ascending order, descending order, and there is an interleave order. And interleave order can start with even slices. They can also start with all slices. So there are many acquisition orders. So the key thing is to make sure you really know what the slice acquisition order your data has. So if you put a wrong slice acquisition order, you cause more problem than not doing anything at all. So just be careful, double check your DICOM header, and all the information is in your DICOM header. Make sure you know exactly the acquisition order of your data. And recently, the multi-band data become more and more popular. So in multi-band acquisition, actually we do acquire multiple slices at the same time. So in this case, we dramatically shorten the TR value. So for multi-band data, the slice timing correction is not as important as for other longer TR ones. Okay, so this is a very busy slide, but the message is very clear. So this slide actually show you the improvement of using slice timing correction versus not use them. So these data are simulated data on event-related design. And x-axis is the slices. Y-axis, on the top of y-axis is the beta value. On the bottom of the y-axis is the residue. So on the top two simulation, they use TR equal to 1 second. At the bottom two, they use TR equal to 3 seconds. The difference between the left panel and the right panel is on the left, people only did 2D smoothing to show the impact of the slice timing correction for individual slices. And on the right, people use the 3D smoothing, which normally what we do in our data. And the green area here is showing how much improvement when you use slice timing correction. So you can see in all cases, when you do slice timing correction, you have clear improvement. And the bigger, the longer the TR you have, the more correction you will end up with. So that's, just see here. And also, if you look at the residue, you can see the same thing, that all the residue being decreased when you use slice timing correction. And when you have longer TRs, the residue is more, the reduced residue is more. Lastly, they use a temporal derivative of the predictor and see if use this alone, the temporal derivative can replace slice timing correction. So you can see the red dotted line is using the temporal derivative, and you can see it's not as good as using slice timing correction. So which means you do have to use slice timing correction, and that will dramatically improve your beta value and also decrease your residue. Okay, to summarize, slice timing correction is to help you to line up your slice properly. And if you have, it's gonna help you a lot if you have a very long TR and if you do event-related design. So it's very critical to use slice timing correction in long TR and event-related designs. And lastly, in our case, we suggest people to do it no matter what. But Blaise told me that Mark might have a different opinion on this, and he's going to talk about that later. Okay, to summarize, temporal preprocessing is very necessary in your data analysis. And filtering, spec removal, and the slice timing correction, if you're done correctly, can definitely make a significant contribution to the power of your analyze. So I think that's the end. Thank you.
Any questions? You can make if there's any questions.
Hi.
Hi.
I have two questions, actually. The first is, as far as the spike removal goes, it seems to me that if you regress out global signal, it would accomplish that. So I guess there's an advantage to using spike removal, as you say. I'd like to know what the advantage is. And the second thing is, I find that people are not even reporting slice time compensation, and when I download publicly available data sets, sometimes I can't even find what kind of slice timing was used. Could you comment on that?
Sure. The first thing is when you use a global regressor, if you have a very, motion spikes or something, that will reflect in your motion regressor. However, that cannot replace the spike removal because spikes removal really constant, have a single point regressor is really going to absorb, targeted at that spike point to resorb any, residue there. So, in our case, we definitely use extra, noise regressors to remove that specific spike point. So in the second, I do not, when I read paper, I do not see people report that. But I definitely hope people do that. Because if you don't do that, I assume people do not report that. That means people, do that. But maybe people should report that to make sure that this is the.
So to just follow up on that question, that is true that most of the publicly available data set, they don't report what kind of interleave they use. But there are techniques, especially the one that we develop in our lab, that you can find that parameter from the data itself. So we developed that technique, and it's available online. It's just a simple code that computes the correlation of the signal between different slices. And it tells you, like we ran it for all FCON 1000, and we found every different site, they're using different interleave for those data, but since they didn't know it and they didn't report it, nobody I have seen that wrote a paper with FCON 1000. They report what kind of interleave correction they have used. But you're absolutely right. You can download that quick MATLAB code and run it, and it gives you what kind of interleave they use for different data sets.
Do you know what it's called?
I'm sorry?
The code? I'll find it.
I'll give it to you after that. Don't worry about it.
Hi, Various. Just one more thing. When would you actually say that we should not do slice timing correction? Because with every method it fails, especially what worries me deeply is just that it's basically just an average. It's a very bad average, actually. And the other thing is, when would you do it? Before or after motion correction? I would think before, but lots of people tell me they like to do it after motion correction. What's your comment on that?
In our case, I forgot the first. Let me answer the second question. I forgot the first one. In our case, we always do it. So in our case, even we use multi-byte acquisition, we always do slide timing correction. Then what we do is we use FSL, so we input the time, time order file or something like that. So we input there. So I think I do not know in FSL what order of they do, because that's all including the pre-processing. Maybe Mark can answer this question better. But we, in terms of doing it, we always do it, and we always input into the pre-processing toolbar, FSL pre-processing. So we always do there. What was the first question?
The first one was more like, when do you think it would fail? Because it is just an averaging, so it might really just fail because the average is actually not such a good method. I mean, for example, for DCM, they already say, don't do it and rather model it.
Yeah, I didn't talk about, but there is a strategy to model it. But the common way is people do the way here, what I talk about is not modeling, just correct them at the beginning. So in that case, because modeling is, personally I like to do it at the beginning, because in that case you have a full data set. So, you apply this to everyone, you can have not even on this data, so you can just do on all of this acquired, you just have your own pipeline, you do this, you get it done before, because you might lose some, when you communicate people or something, you might lose some thing, So, I always do that, and I don't think that's a simple average. It depends on how you do,
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
To follow up on that question again, sorry, I have to mention these things. So when you don't need to do it is when your TR is very short. When your TR goes below 1 second, as you saw in Christian's papers, when the TR becomes shorter, the effects become more nominal, and you can tolerate that much of error, so you don't do it. So usually below 1 TR, we already simulate that. It's not that bad, so you can just ignore it. And in multi-band data, as you could see, it's like a bunch of slides are acquired at the same time, actually, and the TR is very short anyway, so you don't need to do it. What was the other question, sorry, you were asking?
The second, the order.
I'm sorry? So the order, we don't know. That's simple, as simple as this, because they interact with each other. I'll talk about it in my slide as well. Since they interact with each other, we have done many different simulations to see which one to do. None of them shows any significance over the other ones, because when the subject moves his head, at the same time the slides are acquired, and I show you in a slide how this mixed up the whole acquisition, and that's why we don't know a good way of doing it. So SPM as a default does slice timing correction first and then motion correction. FSL has a default. FSL can do it both ways, but as a default you do motion correction first and then FSL. But we have no empirical evidence which one is better than the other one. I mean, all the justification that I've seen out, they were all theoretical. There's no empirical evidence that which one you have to do first. So to answer to your question, it doesn't matter at this time.
Thank you. Thank you both.